Oh, we're not going to start. Don't worry. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Annie Eaton, and I am going to be your moderator. I'll do a quick intro of myself, and then I'm really looking forward for you all to get to know our panelists today. But I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Futurist. We do virtual reality training simulation production for some really incredible companies like Walmart, Delta Airlines, Mars Wrigley, Georgia Pacific, to name a few. And I also released a book earlier this year called The Extended Reality Blueprint, which is a resource for business leaders. I see some excited hands in the audience. A resource for business leaders to help demystify the augmented and virtual reality production process. So I'm always happy to talk about that, but it's basically a decade worth of lessons learned and experience helping others to learn all about the different factors that go into immersive production. But the stars of the show today are these lovely panelists. So I'm going to introduce them individually. They're going to give a quick intro about the work that they do at their organizations. We're going to get into some great questions. All of these individuals are practitioners within their organizations. They've been already working in immersive and 3D and XR, VR, AR for quite a while now, and we'll have some time at the end reserved for your questions. I know some questions were posted in the app as well, but we're going to take some questions from the room and then the app if we have time. So I guess we'll go first with Tim Beery from Niagara Bottling. Tim, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Tim Beery. I've been with Niagara for about 4 years now. I develop e-learning and I'm a curriculum developer. I've been creating e-learning and curriculums for companies such as United, Frontier, Oracle, all sorts of companies, and I've been doing this for about 20 years. I'm from Colorado, and like she said, I'm with Niagara Bottling, so if you have a bottle of water, you're probably drinking one of our products. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tim. And next we have Daryl Wright from Southern Company.
Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for coming out today. My name is Daryl Wright. I'm with Southern Company. We're a utility in the Southeast. We own several regulated utilities, Georgia Power, Southern Nuclear, Alabama Power, Mississippi Power. I've been with them since about 2019 doing XR and now spatial development. And before then, I was with Georgia Tech Research Institute doing primarily DoD work, which is where I got introduced in XR technologies there and have continued since.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Amanda Clarida from Volvo.
Hi, everybody. I am with Volvo Trucks North America. and I've been working in training and development for a little over 10 years with Volvo, and we are developing in every authoring tool that we possibly can to, create the most engaging training experience. We've been working directly in like VR and AR solutions since about 2017. So I've been at it for a little while, trying to really find the best fit for these platforms when it comes to our audiences, and we're still working on it. But I think I'm doing a lot better than I was about 5 years ago with these options and platforms. So definitely excited to be here and looking forward to talking to you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. And then we've got Greg Scott from CDW.
Hey everyone, Greg Scott here. I'm a lead instructional designer at CDW, Computer Hardware, Software, and Services. I've been with the organization for about 6.5 years, doing instructional design for about the last 15. My area of expertise, my research area is workplace learning with virtual reality and remote work settings. We are still in the process of implementing these things within our own training and enablement programs, but made some really good strides and have some fun stories to tell.
Yes, I'm excited to get into that. And last but not least, we have Dr. Matt Law from Grainger.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Law. I manage customer growth strategy for safety for Grainger. I'm also an environmental health officer with the Navy Reserve, and I teach at the University of Alabama, Birmingham in their Advanced Safety and Engineering Management program. All of those are platforms for my passion in research, and two things I love, research and the sound of my own voice. So you folks are in for a real treat today. Over the past couple of years, past few years actually, I've been doing a lot of research into emerging technologies specifically for environmental health and safety. And that includes XR technologies and artificial intelligence and all sorts of other fun stuff. So I'm happy to share those things with you today.
Excellent. Well, I'm actually going to go over to him first because a huge aspect of immersive training, or one of the most powerful use cases, is in environmental health and safety. So I'd love to hear from you what frustrations you think can be resolved by leveraging immersive tech.
One of the phenomenons that we have in the safety world that we really struggle to address is this thing called variation and hazard recognition. So very simply, if you bring several different people into the same room, the operator, the safety professional, the supervisor, the forklift operator, all of these people are going to go into the same room, subject to the same actual risks and subject to the same actual hazards. But when it comes to recognizing those hazards, all of those folks are going to see different things. And a lot of them are going to miss things, and the safety professional is going to make up things that aren't there. So one of the greatest things about XR technology, and this is what I found in my research, is that it is one of the best ways to solve that problem with the variation in hazard recognition, to get everybody on the same page, to see the same things and see the same risks in the same light. And when we can, the other magic part to this is putting them in an immersed environment where they can see these risks and play with these things, and they're not actually exposed to any of those hazards enough to get injured. So when you are able to do this on a consistent basis, XR technology has done a lot of really good stuff, and I'm happy to share a few academic studies that have looked into this and the improvements we've been able to make. But this variation in hazard recognition is probably one of the biggest frustrations in environmental health and safety that we have to address.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I know we're all at this conference because we're either excited or working about in the XR space. So I would love to hear from you, Amanda, since you've been doing this for a little while now. When you were first introduced to the concept of immersive learning, what did spark your excitement for it to help you move forward?
After I got over, the fear and shock. So my passion ultimately, is training and development. I want to figure out, what is the most engaging avenue and platform to get someone interested in what we think they need to learn, and then actually keep them engaged, whether it's through activity or, video, whatever it is, that to really create that engaging experience. And using XR to do that has been daunting at times, but the exciting part of it is when you kind of figure out some inroads, like, oh, this is the audience that this will really work best for. This is the lesson that this is going to work best for. This is the experience that this is going to work best for. And then you can actually work on creating those things, because you can see some successes from an educational perspective where they're actually going to be able to absorb some information, learn something, and use it, in their job roles. Something that can go from theory to tactical is really the exciting part. And that platform, that just form of engagement just really enhances that experience. So that's sort of what makes it fun and exciting to work in that space for education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned talking about how, all the pieces and the use cases and how important it is to find the right use of the technology. Because this is an audience of business leaders and individuals in enterprise, I know executive buy-in can be pretty challenging. So Tim, what are some important factors that people need to consider when they're determining that use case for that buy-in?
I think the biggest one is the return on investment. How are we going to make this work and the company feel like they're still making money without putting a lot of money into it? There's always a bit of a hesitation to throw a lot of money, especially in a technology that we may not have used or it's very new. So it's a matter of explaining and showing them what's capable, what we can do, and how we can bring it to the next level as far as training, how we can make it interactive and fun to some extent for the operators and the people out on the floor. They also need to understand how we can create scenarios that we can't just simulate within a plant itself, because these machines are constantly going 24 hours a day. They come down for maintenance every once in a while, but an operator may or may not be coming on board at the same time that we're putting down a line so that there could be maintenance and so forth.
Yeah. I know there are so many different factors that go into that ROI calculation, so it'll vary greatly per organization. Greg, I know that you have evaluated so many different tools. You've built some amazing things yourself. So what resources would an enterprise organization need to consider to be able to support an XR training initiative, not just at the start, but to continue it on?
Oh, where do I start? I would say the first thing that comes to mind is start with the why. You have a need. You have a need for training, for learning and development. Start with that, just like you would with any other training initiative. I would say then the next resource that I would encourage everybody to get is the work of an instructional designer. Designing your content properly to make sure that it's instructionally sound, that it flows logically. That's a very important thing, because you can derail any VR or XR training initiative if your content is bad. When you're into the development stages, I would say that one of the resources that will help you the most, if you're the one actually tasked with creating these things, is an easy-to-use development platform. XR, VR, AR, they're all difficult, and they're difficult sometimes to develop. Don't make your life any harder than it has to be. Use a tried and true platform. And I would say for implementation, device management platforms will make your life a lot easier. And the biggest resource that you can have is buy-in from decision makers. So I would say that throughout the entire life cycle, those are the three things that come to mind.
Yeah, yeah. Now, once you get that buy-in and you get that use case, production is, of course, an incredibly important part. And I know, Daryl, you are a developer yourself. You've been producing some of the work yourself. And you recently shared with me that you're working on a POC with the Apple Vision Pro. I know that's a hot ticket item this year. So I would love to hear some of the features that you are finding helpful and why you are going down that path for immersive training.
Yeah, so first let me just state that I'm not endorsing the Vision Pro. Southern doesn't endorse the Vision Pro. I mean, this is a pretty fun conference, but just in case there's lawyers out there, just want to make sure that that's the case. This is my opinion. So we found the Vision Pro to be pretty amazing, actually. The see-through. How many people here have tried the Vision Pro? Just show of hands, right? And how many people are actively developing for it? Yeah. So when you put it on, there's so many details in there. I was amazed as when I started putting example objects into the headset, and you could actually see reflections in the objects of your room. So it's doing real-time reflections, captures as it starts, real-time lighting. Those are details that just make the objects in there just appear more real, right? And the shadows and everything they have. And so when we're showing this to some people for a proof of concept in a training app, they were shocked at how good it was. In fact, they immediately said, well, this could change how we're doing the classrooms, right? Because now you can leave the Vision Pro on, you can take notes and still read your notes. You can look at the instructor and see what they're talking about, and everyone could have whatever they're training on, doing their individual lessons and going through this stuff. So it really can change that. And the other, I think, huge potential, and again, this is all potential, is one of the issues we have with XR is traditionally just been adoption and people that actually want to use it and continue to use it, right? Putting a dashboard in a Vision Pro first lets people reuse their Swift code that they may have, where they already have dashboards on their iPads or whatever. But the problem with those sometimes is you have to drill down and you may want to compare it to other things. So in this case, you can have an infinite canvas around you of all of the data that you want to see. You can pull other people in with the FaceTime, and they can be looking at the same data at the same time. Now, the important distinction there, though, is the Vision Pro is a useful computer in and of itself. You can have Teams going, you can have other applications going. So if they're already using the headset and then they go to your app, that's a great thing instead of having to put the headset on to go to your app, right? Because we want them to have that on. We want them to want to use headsets and normalize the use of headsets, not just, I have to do this thing because I'm in training.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait to hear how that progresses. Now, Tim, I know you're more on the 3D side of things, and are there any new tools or technologies that you are excited to integrate as you move forward with this technology production pipeline?
I assume that's for me.
It is.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to, especially on the developer side of things, seeing where AI is going to take us. Just not having to code and do some of the mundane things where I just don't have time to go to a college and learn all this stuff. Just that helping me out is a big deal. I think in addition to that, I think we're going to see a good use case for the mixed reality. Being able to keep your feet on the ground, see what's going on around you, yet be able to look inside the different components and see what's actually happening internally. I think that'll help our operators out a lot. And yeah, as soon as the Matrix thing comes online, I'm looking forward to that. But that may be well off. So
hopefully in our lifetime. Great. Well, so deployment. I know, Amanda, you have successfully deployed a couple of different projects. So are there any lessons learned that you want to share with those who are just now starting that journey?
So many. I think the biggest thing for well, that I learned anyway, especially with the very first project when it comes to deployment, is that I encourage you all to try the best that you can to think beyond the initial deployment. We created one VR experience to essentially do like a product tour around the trucks, and that was back in 2017. You know, and we had some grand plans that ultimately didn't work out because we didn't really have a thorough understanding of, you know, what it meant to scale the offering, what it meant to make it available to hundreds of dealers around the country. Even the cost of doing something like that was quite prohibitive. So, you know, it feels really, really good to, you know, do all this work and kind of iterate over and over and over again, and you do it and you test it and you go back and you do some more and you test it again, and then you're like, oh, we're ready, you know, we're gonna deploy. And then you do, and everything goes well, you know, but then after that, what do you do next? You know, so that's kind of why I'm saying think about that future plan. How are you going to use this later? Are you going to build upon it? Are you going to continue to iterate? Are you going to offer new versions? Are you going to do this for a different product? Because when you're using this type of technology, it's really important that it doesn't just fall flat afterwards, because it's a big investment. It's a really, you know, it's long to develop. It's costly. It takes a lot of brain power. There's a lot of frustrations that go into that development. So, you know, when it comes to deployment, I think there's always room to consider what's next even before you deploy, because you're going to want to do a what's next, and it's going to be unfortunate if there's nothing to work from and there's no plan, because you're almost going to be starting over again. So that's kind of one big one for me.
That's really important, yeah. So Daryl, I know you're passionate as well about tutorials. I am as well. It's really important to make sure that whoever you're putting in these immersive experiences is able to actually use them. So what, in your professional opinion, are the key components that really need to be in there for the users to have that good first experience?
Yeah, so a tutorial for onboarding onto VR, that is absolutely crucial. One of the worst things that can happen is a program fail, not because it was bad, not because it was done horribly, but simply because users didn't like it because they don't know what to do or how to do it. We really have a disadvantage in the enterprise versus, say, just a gaming platform, because we don't know who's coming into the experience. They have all sorts of backgrounds, no background, complete VR enthusiasts. So you have to be able to get them comfortable in the headset, I believe, before they get into your application. To me, what I try to do is to let the people have a little fun, because we've talked about how people are a little hesitant of putting on the headset. They're, you know, they don't want to look stupid, whatever, and just getting them in the headset is one thing, but then you don't want them to feel like they don't know what to do once they're in there. And so what I found is to take them one step at a time. Start with movement, focus on that. I actually have a sort of onboarding template, if you will, that has, imagine sort of a long hallway with small cubes. And you start with one and you learn how to move. And then you go to a next one, the light turns on there, and you learn how to grasp. And then here's where it turns a little fun. You let them grasp a ball and throw it, because then they get understand about how physics can be in there. They have fun. Everyone knows how to throw a ball. Everyone knows how to grab it, and so it becomes second nature. Move on to menus, move on to whatever, and then at the end of the hallway, if you will, anything that might be particular for that application, always make sure that you go over specialized movements that they're going to use. So that way when they're in the application, they've already done them. They're not as concerned in a tutorial that they're not doing it right. This is where they learn how to do that, and it makes them a lot more comfortable when they get to the actual experience.
Yeah, I love bringing a little fun into it. That sounds great. I might have to do that for some of my Sims too. So, of course, after deployment, we all want to make sure we're measuring success, especially in a learning experience, and making sure it's truly effective. So, Matt, you're coming from the research background, and all of that measuring success lies in the data. So, what are the important metrics for organizations to note when they're trying to prove out the success of an immersive training program?
Let's try something to make sure everybody's on the same page. Folks, if you don't measure it, you can't. Good Lord. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Okay? Everybody take that away. So, Greg mentioned something earlier. There should be a why for using this technology. Hopefully, if you're putting in any type of solution, you already have in mind what that problem is that you're trying to solve. So measuring the success of everything is going to look different for every organization depending on what type of problem you have that you're trying to solve. So once you have your problem, then you need to figure out the elements that make up that problem. And there's probably going to be several things there that you need to fix to solve that ultimate goal, that ultimate problem. But then you also have to figure out how to quantify those different elements. And again, it's going to look different for everybody. And even if you are able to quantify all the elements for that problem, there are going to be other ancillary things that maybe you didn't think about. Is this cost effective? Am I getting a return on investment? Is there worker engagement with this solution? Whatever it may be, there's going to be all sorts of things that you have to measure. And if you don't know how to measure it, I encourage you to find somebody who does know how to measure it or can help you figure that out. By the way, there are a lot of things that we take for granted, a lot of qualitative things, a lot of feedback that can be quantified. That is my mission in life, is to quantify all the things that are normally qualitative. But everything out there can be measured in some form or fashion. But I have to say, you have to start with that problem, that ultimate problem, figure out what the elements are, and then figure out how to measure those. And if you can't do that, find someone who can help you do that.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Greg, I know that you've had very positive feedbacks from some of the end users of your training experience. So was any of that actionable that then helped you move this VR initiative to the next step?
I'd say the first thing that comes to mind was I did some qualitative research on VR users in remote workplace learning, and I remember very vividly one leader telling me, I put this headset on and I freaked out. He went from a non-believer to a full convert in about 30 seconds. And the experience that he saw was a static 360 image with a little bit of ambient audio and a couple of flat videos. In other words, the development load wasn't all that much. The point I'm trying to make here is you do not have to go nuts with this. You can get exceptionally good results, good positive outcomes. If your stuff is designed well, it does not necessarily have to be all that sophisticated. Now, for those of us who are tech nerds and like the, shiny objects and spinny things and all the cool stuff you can do with immersive VR, it's very tempting to go down that road and fully say, hey, I'm going to do the most complicated thing possible. You don't have to. If your stuff is designed correctly, you're going to get positive results, hopefully. Other actionable insights, this one I wanted to mention in my first response, but I'll mention it here. You need to have technical support available for your users. You don't know where users are coming from. In many cases, they may be using the VR headsets for the first time. I cannot tell you how many different users I had during my research who were holding the controller like a club, and then when I asked them to pull the trigger on the handheld controller, they hit the side button. That sort of thing can derail a VR training initiative. That's one of the actionable insights I have. Be ready to offer real-time technical support, whatever that means, whether you need to train up instructors to be able to do it or have somebody ready. Just make sure you have that option available.
Yeah, that's excellent, because we all want our projects to be successful. And I think also that kind of goes back to Daryl's point on tutorials and the importance of that. Now, I know we are going to take questions in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to say, when you are thinking about your use case, I think it's important. One of our clients has said they want to find their loss leader. I don't know if that's exactly how these great people have figured out what their use cases are, but figuring out a problem that can be solved with any sort of extended reality, AR or VR, and not just using it because it's shiny and cool, although we do love shiny, cool things, is really going to be the foundation that brings your project success. So whether that is a process-driven training that leverages hard skills where you're actually interacting with tools and different components of machinery, or you're teaching a sales rep using soft skills and AI integration to actually have a conversation with your trainees to help prepare them for those tough conversations. I think understanding your audience, which I know one of you mentioned earlier, as well as how you're going to measure that and then benchmarking that at the very start is really going to lead to the success of that deployment. But all of these wonderful individuals have had that experience, learned firsthand, and would be happy to take some questions from the audience. So does anyone have any questions? You can just raise your hand. Oh man, well, I've got backups if no one's got questions.
Oh, way in the back.
Okay, sorry, it's really bright, so it's hard to see.
Excellent. Justin from Ford, Learning and Development. You were discussing ways to kind of quantitatively discuss the parts of your problem and what those elements are. Can you speak a little more on that?
Yes, I'm sorry, it was the parts of the...
When you're trying to go from, when you're trying to basically assess the elements of a problem so that you can possibly quantify.
Yes. Okay, great.
Is that for me then?
It could be for anybody, but yeah, go ahead.
Anybody can take this, but here, I'll give you an example. This is, my doctoral research looked into risk perceptions of foreign-born workers in construction. Risk perceptions is one of those concepts that's normally a qualitative concept. You normally just gather some feedback, do some interviews, and just sort of get a general consensus on a perception of risk. As a matter of fact, the word perception is normally a qualitative thing. However, it can be quantified by breaking down the elements that make up the risk perception. It's understanding the likelihood that something is going to happen, understanding the severity that something is going to happen, and then feelings of worry and feelings of feeling unsafe about certain situations. You break those situations down, you put it on a Likert scale, and everybody responding to that is going to give each of those elements a number, and then you end up with a final score. So that's just one example, but ultimately, if you're trying to solve a problem of any type, there are going to be different elements that make up that problem, and you have to figure out a way to score those. And it might be a worker survey, it might be observational survey, it could be anything, but there are ways to quantify all of those different elements to score how well your solution is working against your problem.
Can I offer something there
absolutely.
too? So, you know, we don't always have to think about XR Solutions as its own entity, so everything starts over, including measurement, right? So from a training perspective, you know, we, like Annie was just saying, you start the conversation in terms of what are we trying to accomplish, what do you need to know, what do you need to be able to do, and you have to start from where you are now. So how do we measure that now? And from a training perspective, do we have KPIs that are mapped to the behavior that we are trying to enhance or build or, you know, expand on, whatever it is? What are our current metrics that we're using to measure it today? and how closely does that align to the behavior that you're trying to teach through this experience. It doesn't have to be, this very, segregated experience. A lot of times you're dealing with the same people in the same audience for the same job skills, and you know what I mean? So a lot of these measurements and metrics can be carried over, to start finding out what success looks like for you.
Yeah, and one more thing to add, when you're looking for what you're going to be doing in VR or AR, is what can't you do with the existing platforms that you're leveraging for other training. So something, I know my Delta people were here earlier, but one of the things that, oh, he's walking in right now. One of the things that we did with them was you can't simulate weather conditions in the physical world. I mean, maybe you can, but I don't think you can. So when we were able to bring that into VR and then make a plane cover in either snow, ice, or frost, or you're able to turn it to night instantly, you're able to de-ice a plane without wasting physical fluid, which is material and cost. There are all these things that are going to be specific to your use case, but when you think about maybe what you can't do in these other platforms, that'll help you figure out what you can do in emerging or immersive technology, and then use those points to be able to find, how much that would cost you otherwise, to be able to help with that calculation. It is complex and it's different for everybody, so there's not really an answer for a cookie cutter answer, but great question. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Milan Savak. I work at the University of North Texas at Dallas, and so our interest is really in training our students across obviously a lot of different industries. And so I was curious about the experience around training soft skills, and if anyone can speak to that, like what specific skills have you tried to train on using these technologies and what's worked, any things that we should be thinking about, again, at the very early stages of this, and so that's why I'd love to learn from this panel.
Yes, go ahead.
I can go. I'll speak to immersive VR in particular. One of the advantages of immersive VR is that it is extremely good at activating your emotions. So it's been found through studies that people react similarly in immersive VR as they do in real life. So I've seen success in difficult conversations where, you're discussing poor performance at work, or perhaps going through, a job interview or something along those lines. That connection that people get through that immersion, I've seen great success with that. And as Annie, as you alluded to earlier, with the advent of AI and intelligent agents within it, immersive VR is really an exceptionally good platform when you're wanting to have these difficult conversations and you want to do though in a safe space. So I've seen a lot of success in that area, and I think if I had to put on my, prediction hat here, I would say that it's going to become even more powerful as technologies such as AI adapt and advance.
Yeah, and go ahead, Amanda. Did you have something to add?
Sorry, just a quick comment. I've been a little less successful, specifically when it comes to the soft skills side, like sales training, for instance. That's kind of where a lot of our soft skills training comes in, because I think AI, is an awesome feature to be able to add to some tools and things like that. But for me, I can use AI outside of VR very successfully in other tools to simulate those types of conversations and things. And I think as far as development goes from a cost and time perspective, it's much more effective and efficient for me to go that route than to put it into a VR solution.
Yeah, and I know we talk about like physical safety a lot, and I know you mentioned emotions as well, but you think about the emotional safety, I guess, that you could give someone in a simulated space. So we did a project, it was for middle schoolers, but it was specifically around how to encounter bullies and what to do when you encounter those bullies. So I know most of you are probably implementing these for people older than middle schoolers, but giving them that freedom of choice and how they wanted to react to these really difficult and kind of scary situations in a place that they felt safe and they could kind of see the different outcomes firsthand and feel that emotional response and then gain that confidence so that if they did see that happening, that they could approach it intelligently and confidently, I think really is incredible. I mean, that was back in 2019, and I couldn't even imagine how much more realistic or conversational it could have been with some of the AI tools that are around today. But yeah, I think emotional safety and being able to give someone that confidence, especially for people who are more introverted and may need that extra kind of practice to feel that confidence, is an incredible way to implement it.
I think one of the things that I saw working at United Airlines, I worked in the flight training development world, and it's good to see people in a simulated environment deal with high pressure situations because you just never know how they're going to react. I saw that with a couple pilots where we were flying in on a simulator and it's raining, they've lost an engine. Some of these pilots would throw their hands up and just say, I don't know what to do next. And it's real good for us as instructional designers to see that, okay, yeah, we're at least seeing where those pressure points are and go from there and see what we can do to help some of these pilots that are having problems with those CRM situations or cockpit resource management situations and how we can bring them full court and get them back into the cockpit and make them feel ready for such high pressure situations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do we have another question? Oh, I see. Yes.
Hi, check. So this is Thiru from Mara Donnelly. The question is more about to the panel on what is the kind of lead time are you guys looking at, and are you comfortable with that? Are you happy with that in today's for your demand versus supply of the immersive learning content?
I am sorry, the speakers are facing that way, so it is a little hard to hear you. Can you repeat
Okay.
that one more time?
Sorry, the question is, are you comfortable with the lead time of content creation in the immersive learning space?
Is that comfortable with lead time, right?
Yeah.
Great. No. That's on you.
Well,
Anyone have an opinion?
I don't know if comfort is a good word, but yeah, people want the results quick, unfortunately, and these things take time to develop, and they need to. Upper management needs to understand that it takes time, and give them the details. You know, this is how long it's going to take to model something. This is how long it's going to take to do the coding behind the whole thing. Lay it out for them, and I use Gantt sheets or whatever I can to give them a good visualization of what time it takes to lead up to a full-blown training.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. That is one of the most difficult things to communicate, especially, for most of us, we're not game studios. There's absolutely no idea about creating these 3D models, whether it's a digital twin, whether you can start from, a laser scan or whatever. There's still, for a lot of these trainings, it's not so much the coding, but the modeling that takes forever, and to make it right, especially if it's got to be, like it is at a real plant, or if it is a somewhat digital twin. And I think I wouldn't say it's a misconception. I think it's just ignorance, and I don't mean that as a negative way, but just ignorance because it's not been done before in many cases. And so it's our job to educate them and to be very straightforward and let them know this is how long this is going to take, this is why, and to just be with them as much as you can. Communication, keeping them on board, on track, I find that to be the best way to make sure it's not going off the track. But yeah, you've got to set those expectations on how long it takes.
Yeah, great.
On the flip side of that, I will tell you that if you have a 360 image and an idea of what you're looking for, you can put together an experience that'll work in immersive and desktop VR in about 10 minutes and deploy it to people. I wouldn't say it's a great idea, but there is a difference between like the more sophisticated types of VR where it's fully translated and you can navigate a 3D environment and pick up stuff and run people over with forklifts and that sort of thing. And then there are things that are like 360 images with hotspots and flat video. The lead time on those sorts of things, it still requires proper design, of course, and it requires you to produce everything properly. But the lead time on those can be significantly less as well, just to add some counterpoint to that. If you're going for a 360 type of experience, you know, like perhaps a virtual tour or something like that, that could be a situation in which there is a shorter lead time. And that's an expectation that you can set from the very beginning. If you're going for the full 3D experience, it's going to take a little while to do so. If you're going for more of like the 360 experience, augmented with other types of media, you can enable that a lot faster.
Yeah, immersive training is absolutely on a spectrum of all sorts of different technologies, and I think even whether it's 360 or something else, doing these proof of concepts to kind of expedite that initial timeline can not only help with getting something out, but also getting buy-in from leadership. So there are all sorts of ways to do something quickly. Okay, I think we have time for one last question. Any last questions? And if not, so the panelists will be available out there for a few minutes if anyone else had additional things that they wanted to ask, but we really appreciate you all for being here today. We appreciate these panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, thank you.